Hey, babe. Mm, What you watching? Oh, how often do I think about the Roman Empire? Well, I gotta be honest, honey bun, I don't think about it at all. Oh, really? All guys think about the Roman Empire? Okay. You got me. I do think about the Empire. The Persian Empire, that is. Or the Achaemenid Empire, as it's called. I mean, sure, the Romans get credit for some stuff, but let's be real. Conquering and making aqueducts is a little overrated, if you ask me. My guy Cyrus the Great, though, now he was a real trendsetter, especially for the time period. Okay, wait. Let me set the scene a little. Okay, so imagine, right? In the ancient arid lands of Persia, there's a royal family. King Cambyses I and Queen Mandane. Mandane? Something like that. Anyway, they were gifted a newborn child under the celestial night sky. I mean, some people believe the very heavens themselves blessed this child. Because apparently, supposedly, stars shot across the sky just in celebration of his birth. At the time, Persia wasn't really a thing. Cambyses, he just ruled a city. That's it. The land, the people, everything as far as the eye could see really belonged to the Median Empire and its king Astyages, or Astyages, or something like that. I don't know. I'm just going to call him Astyages. But the thing about Astyages is he himself was a pretty paranoid guy. The legend goes that he offered his daughter's hand, Queen Mandane, to Cambyses, but he also had a dream, or prophecy or something, that a grandson of his would one day climb from his crib and return to kill him. So old paranoid Astyages at Cyrus's birth declared that the baby should be killed. Well, of course, parents aren't just going to off their own baby. It was the ancient world, but these were loving parents, apparently. Yeah, I'm sure we would be too. Anyway, young Cyrus is born, and his parents pretend to have him killed, but they actually sneak him off to some shepherd or something. And apparently Astyages is just cool with that. Totally buys it. But apparently, even from those earliest days, something was different about Cyrus. Enough that Astyages, the big king, the big man in charge, was somehow able to be convinced to let his grandson live as a royal, even though he was super paranoid about his dream. No, I don't think he had siblings. I think it was just Cyrus. As far as I know, he was an only child, son to a so-called king, if you could really even say that about Cambyses. You're still keeping track of everybody's names, right? This isn't like a Game of Thrones situation? Okay, cool. Well, you know what? Just as a reminder, Cyrus is the cool guy, the young boy. Astyages is his grandfather and also the emperor of the Median Empire. And his dad is Cambyses, who is married to Mandane, who is Astyages' daughter. Yeah, it's a lot, I know. Anyway, Cyrus apparently was a fairly wise guy, even from his young age. There's like these little legends about how even as a kid he would like gather animals from the menagerie and tell great stories of honor and freedom and all that sort of fun stuff, Total king material, right? Apparently he was also educated fairly different from what are basically upper-class kids, right? I mean, son of a king and all that. It seemed fairly clear that his father and his mother, they really wanted the best for him. So it seems like he was growing up to be a pretty stellar leader. Big dreams of uniting the Persian clans, bigger dreams of being a good king. And so the day came where his father anointed Cyrus as heir to the throne. I mean, it just seems like he was the ultimate charmer back then. just the sort of guy that people wanted to follow, I guess. I don't know. Something about not wanting to be a jerk ruler, I guess, seemed appealing. Anyway, things get a little blurry because, hey, I don't have a time machine to back then, and there's really not that much information about the transitional period of him becoming king. But he seems to rule his little kingdom, Anshan, fairly well. That's where his father ruled too, by the way, Anshan. But, we talked about how earlier he had his sights set on broader horizons and all that. The great Median Empire owned by his grandfather Astyages. Astyages, however, is fairly quick to the news, and he hears about how his grandson has made these plans. He doesn't like it one bit. So get this, Astyages marches his great army against his revolting grandson. It seemed like the prophecy nightmare that he had manifested in Cyrus. And yeah, I don't really know how it all goes down because, again, this stuff takes place in like 500 BC or something. But the story apparently goes that Cyrus outsmarts the great Median army and overthrows his granddaddy, and the entire army deserts their king and surrenders to Cyrus. Kind of wish I knew how he did it because that would be kind of cool, but whatever. Against all odds, he conquers the Median Empire. But conquer is kind of a strong word. Because yeah, technically he did conquer, but he didn't act like a typical conqueror at the time, That's why I really like the stories about Cyrus. He doesn't burn the idols of the locals. He doesn't behead all those that oppose him. He doesn't do any of that sort of stuff. I mean, these empires were brutal back then. He's just like, nah. To the shock of the world around him, obviously. So what did he do? Well, not only was he pretty chill in victory, he didn't force his culture on anybody, and in fact, he kind of did the opposite. He brought on advisors from the lands he won, brought back some people's customs, respect other people's customs, just brought them on as officials, in his little cabinet, his little king group. All right. I'm not going to bore you with all the minute details of politicking in 500 BC, but, if you think about it historically, it's kind of crazy precedent. Kind of take it a little granted today, but it took us like 2,500 years. So yeah, I don't know. I just really respect someone who's willing to learn from others and build something great out of it. The histories generally state that the places that were taken over by Cyrus ended up more prosperous, while still basically getting to keep everything and their customs in place. Is it cool to conquer people left and right? Probably not. But if it's the state of the ancient world, you'd rather it be a guy like Cyrus than Julius Caesar or the Babylonians or, any most ancient figures throughout history, to be honest. There's this thing in like a museum somewhere. It's called like the Cyrus cylinder. It's a tablet made of like clay. And in a way, it's basically the first documented piece of writing that kind of symbolizes and solidifies some sort of semblance of human rights. There's so many little things that we take for granted today that were started by Cyrus and the Achaemenid Empire in general. Yeah, stupid stuff like, I don't know, having one design for a coin so everyone knew how much it was worth. The Romans would have nowhere to look for that sort of stuff if it weren't for the Persians. And like another thing, like how to divide a great empire so it's easier to control locally and still prospers. Having a well-maintained road system in your empire is probably pretty important too. Like, we know that now, but sheesh, until Cyrus came along, it didn't seem like a big priority for empires. If you really think about it, it is fascinating the way things pass down throughout history. Because supposedly Alexander the Great really looked up to Cyrus, after hearing all these magical tales about him. And it was ironically Alexander who would eventually come knocking on the door of the Achaemenid Empire hundreds of years later, just to dismantle it, long after Cyrus had built it up. But by that point, there were a lot of issues by Cyrus's great-great-great-descended successors had built up. Like, the Persians didn't have a unified military fighting under the Persian flag, right? It was more like, yeah, we got our Persian warriors, our Median guys, our Babylonian guys, the boys from Macedon, our steppe nomads. But they weren't really motivated to defend or fight for each other, just themselves. I mean, why would they be? They were super prosperous. In another empire, those people would be terrorized and disciplined into falling in line with whatever empire was on top. But since Cyrus had set an example of not doing that, his successors didn't really find a way to motivate the troops effectively, which really made it easier for Alexander to basically take apart the Achaemenid Empire. Okay, but enough about that. Last thing I'll say about this whole thing is just the fun stories about how Cyrus might have died. Yeah, I said fun stories about death. I mean, it's all, kind of shrouded in mystery, which kind of makes it fun, though. There's like no real agreed upon idea about his death, but this one makes for great ironic storytelling, and who doesn't love that, right? So this is what this Greek historian Herodotus says about his death. Apparently, Cyrus offered his hand in marriage to Queen Tamiris, the leader of this empire/peoples called Massagetae or Massagetae. Well, Queen Tamiris was a widowed lady, and she had become the leader of her people through the death of her husband. And she could see that Cyrus was trying to take the kingdom for himself, for his empire. Queen Tamiris said no to Cyrus. She didn't want to merge the empires together. She didn't want to join the Achaemenid Empire. She didn't want to be a part of Persia. So, on advice of his counselor Croesus, Cyrus decides to do what conquerors do and invades. So this is how he does it. He starts building a bridge on a river to the Massagetae, and Tamiris sends him a messenger saying, hey, rule your own stuff, let me rule mine. If you come any further, it's the end for you. So Cyrus, knowing the people of this land were going to attack his camp soon, and knowing that the Massagetae weren't really alcoholic drinkers, sets up a little trap in his camp. By throwing a large banquet and leaving tons and tons of wine, partying it up, and then retreating, the incoming army, led by Tamiris' son, comes upon this camp, right? This camp left behind by Cyrus, with all this wine and free food and just great stuff laying around. They start getting into it. Like, they really enjoy those goodies. They get super wasted. And again, these people weren't really wine drinkers. They weren't alcoholics. They didn't really know what this kind of stuff was. So, yeah, drunk on wine, they basically get destroyed by Cyrus and his army. Cyrus had captured the son of the queen. And once he sobers up and realizes what happened, he begs Cyrus to free him, begs him to return to his queen, to his mom. And remember, Cyrus was a pretty chill guy for the time period. Maybe a little too chill, because he does end up freeing him. But the son's motives were not that pure. He kills himself, just to incite anger in his mother against Cyrus. And become angry she does, calling the wine a drug who made people so mad that they spoke evil, and its color blood being demonic. And she promises upon the son that if Cyrus stays, she would give him more blood than he could drink. And so the two armies prepare for the battle ahead. The great Persian Empire with Cyrus at its front versus the Massagetae led by their fearless queen Tamiris. And off to war they go. Sorry, I'm getting a little too into it, aren't I? Anyway, she defeats him, defeats the entire Persian Empire, and finds his dead corpse. You know what she does with that corpse? She takes his head, chops it off, puts it in a bag filled with blood, and says, "Drink your fill of blood." I mean, that is pretty metal of her to carry around a bag of blood just for that purpose. But you know what? Slay, queen. Literally, I mean, slay. You did. Anyway, sorry. I know that was pretty stupid. Anyway, the reason I think that one theory about how Cyrus died is ironic is because, I mean, it seems almost fated, right? Cyrus, who was almost killed by his father, ends up letting a son die and gets killed by a mother. Just like a weirdly familial thing, I don't know. But again, who knows what actually happened? Herodotus was more storyteller than actual historian. I mean, he's telling this story hundreds of years after Cyrus has died, so what does he really know? It's just as likely that Cyrus died peacefully in his sleep or of natural illnesses. I mean, seriously, your guess is as good as mine. Yeah, not the most reliable narrator. But hey, the story is half the fun, right? Did I put you to sleep? Wait, does that answer the question about how often I think about the Roman Empire? Kinda? A little bit? Well, there you go. You're welcome, babe. I'm glad you enjoyed listening to my ramblings. Thank you.